cosa incredibile.
Parts of the southern Italy are trying to recover from the torrential rain that caused devastating flood in Sicily. Flooding cities, blocked roads and leaving thousands of people without electricity. Officials have called the disaster a national emergency. Within hours, the streets of Palermo, Catania and Messina turned into raging rivers that swept away cars and flooded the first floor to homes and businesses. The Italian Civil Protection Agency reported that more than 115 millimeters of rain fell in less than 20 hours, an amount that usually falls over several months. Local resident Maria Russo told reporters, "The water came so fast that in a matter of minutes my streets turned into a river. We didn't have time to have anything." Emergency service rescue families standing on rooftops and firefighters walked throughout the night clearing debris and pumping water out of hospitals and schools. At least 20,000 households were left without power and many villages remain isolated after landslides blocked acid roads. Authorities confirmed several injuries, at least 3 deaths, although death toll could rise in such countries. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. "We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy." The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus groves, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, where flooded and agriculture groups warn of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half a month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked in disaster to the Mediterranean and Mediterranean cyclones similar to the tropical storm. Since when the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and a violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged Maria Russo county say, "Sicily is used to the hardship, but this something else. We cannot fight this our own." The Italian island of Sicily is battling catastrophic flooded and unprecedented rain turned entire town into disaster zone. Meteorologists have described the storm as a once-of-the-century event and official warning the full extent of the damage is not yet known. The streets of Palermo turned into rivers, cars were swept away by a building and underground garages were flooded in a matter of minutes. In Catania, residents were forced in a wet chest deep through the metro in the city center and hospital reported serious damage to emergency rooms. Messina, Sorrento, and rural mountain community were cut off by landslides. In less than a day, more than 250 millimeters of rain fell, almost as much in 4 months. Italy's Civil Protection Agency issued a red alert, urged residents to stay indoors. Helicopters and rescue boats worked around the clock to evacuate families trapped in the upper floor. At least 10 people were killed and more than injured and missing. "I thought that it was end," said Salvador Vital, a 64-year-old farmer who was the livestock while floods inundated his field. The land were deepened on the Cast field destroyed it. Power outage left more than 400,000 homes in the dark. A rail service was suspended and Palermo airport was severely disrupted. Businesses and county millions as losers, with tourism, agriculture and fishing particularly hard hit. Sicily famous citrus groves, olive trees and vineyards were flooded, raising fears to flood and shortage. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni declared the flooding a national emergency, promising immediate funding to military support. "We stand with the Sicily," she said. European Union officials also pledged to assist with the barriers linking to the disaster and urgent need to action on climate change. Experts warn that climate change is intensifying on severe Mediterranean storms, and warming seas are contributing to more intense rainfall. Dr. Maria Russo, a climatologist, said, "What we are seeing in Sicily, a near future is urgent action to take no taking. As the water began to recede, thousands of people forced to painful task to rebuilding, standing outside her destroyed homes in Palermo." Maria Russo said with the tears in her eyes, "The Sicilians are strong, but the storm was broken our heart." Public transportation was severely disrupted, leaving passengers stranded. The coastal area faced to boost with a storm and strong sway, crashing against the coastline, caused erosions to damage the sea definitions. Emergency services are working around the clock to help those in need. The Italian Red Cross has mobilized teams to support the most affected areas, offering shelters and distributing basic necessities. Refuse operations are ongoing, with the reports of people trapped in the homes due to rising water. Helicopters have been deployed to evacuate those to imminent danger. The impact of the storm on agriculture is also a growing concern. Sicily knows the serious growth of vineyard forces potential devastation. Initial estimates suggest significant crops losers with a could have the long-term economic impact of the region farming communities. Italian Prime Minister Conte has experienced solidarity with the affected residents, pledging government aid to resources to support recovery efforts. He praised the resilience of the Sicilian people and terrorist forced rescues. Meteorologists predict severe weather conditions will continue over the next 24 hours in invite residents to remain vigilant. As Sicily struggles with the aftermath and the disaster of focus to ensure the safety of the residents is beginning to arduous task to rebuilding. The full extent of the damage will become clear in the coming days, but for now Sicily is widespread the storm relentless onslaught. Rome was hit a sudden and violent hailstorm that turned a cobbled streets into the city rivers and shocking residents. The storm, which hit during the evening rush hour, brought golf-sized ball hailstones, torrential rain and strong winds of the city caused significant disruption and damage. When the minutes measured through the faces, such as Via del Corso, were covered in ice, bringing traffic at standstill. Cars were damaged, white ships were shattered and motorcyclists were forced to abandon their vehicles. It was like a bombardment, as stones from the sky, said Marco De Santis, who took shelters in the cafe where the storm reached. Public transport were paralyzed, several metro stations were flooded and tram service were suspended. At Fiumicino Airport, flights were delayed after the runway were covered the slush and ground strength rushed to clear the debris. The city's historic landmark also suffered significant damage from the storm. Tourists took shelter under the arches of Colosseum and up its anti-amp area to layers into ice accumulated to steps to Spanish stamps and Pisa, Venezia. Emergency service rushed to protect archaeological sites, fearing the water seepage could damage the fragile structures. Hospitals reported dozens of injuries, mostly from the slippers on the ice sidewalks or being stuck on fallen bridges. Power outage left thousands of homes in darkness. In the flash floods inundated underground parking lots of basements in low-lying areas such as Sicily and Tuscany. Meteorologists explained that the storm formed that the warm Mediterranean air collided with the cold front moving south from northern Europe, creating strong updrafts that caused unusually large hailstorms. Experts warn that due to climate change, such extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense throughout Italy.
Assassini! Delinquenti sono! Delinquenti sono! Sono dei delinquenti! A muoversi questo tempo! Delinquenti!
The Sicilian city of Palermo is trying to recover after the violent storm that caused chaos throughout the region, bringing record rainfall, destructive winds, and widespread flooding. In a matter of hours, almost a month of worst of rainfall caused sweat of the overflow and the streets flood. Footage from the city shows cars floating like toys, buses stuck in the middle on the roads, and firing residents seek refuge in the rooftop. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to escape, said Maria Russo, whose family was rescued to firefighters from their flooded apartment. At least 5 people were killed and dozens were injured. More than 200 residents were evacuated from their homes, and thousands were left without power due to damage in power lines caused by fallen trees and lightning strikes. The historic center of Palermo, known for the architecture and the live market, was illy emptied, businesses closed to tourists at the day hotels. Hospitals are overwhelmed, treating cases to hypothermia, injuries and shock. Emergency shelters have been set up in school and community halls to accommodate families who have lost their homes. The major called in a war storm in history, and their request urged assistance to the native level. In addition to Palermo rural area, the Sicily were also affected. Vineyard, olive farms, and a citrus orange which are vital to the island economy were destroyed, raising concerns about the significant loss and agriculture. Transport link was paralyzed. Palermo airport suspended flights to several hours, and a ferry rail service was suspended due to flooding and landslides. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the collisions of warm Mediterranean waters with a cold front, increasingly common phenomenon linking to climate change. Italian Civil Protection Agency warning that Sicily is now one of the regions in Europe most vulnerable to extreme weather conditions. As the sun rose over the devastation streets, scenes of resilience began to emerge. Volunteers from neighboring towns arrived the shovels, pumps, and food supplies. In Catania, University standard formed human chain to help clear debris to home of elderly residents. Church bells rang in solidarity of many communities, helped nightly prayers to injure and displaced. One image of wet Sicily flag flying proudly over the flood town hall became a national symbol of strength. Local media called at a room and declared a state of emergency to obtain additional funds in the rescue to rapid reconstruction. Engineers are now installing bridges and roads, help workers to warn the possible communication flow to overflows, seen and standing water. Meteorologists at Weather Italia say a storm system may be weakening the residual rains and extended to continue for several more days. The ground is standing with the water. Warming climatologist Dr. Elena Ferraro even tell additional rainfall could cause new floods and landslides. Environmental activists are calling this storm a wake-up call. This is not just a random error, said Lucia Marinel of Climate Italia. This is the result of decades of neglecting environmental policy of urban planning. We must change now. International support has begun to arrive at the form of offer assistance from the European Union of neighboring countries. Italian celebrities, soccer players, and Pope have been experiencing this solidarity. Its depths disappeared under murky water. Rural Sicily was not spared entire. The contrast of the tempest of olive groves and vineyards were ravaged. The castles of Sicily, rich agricultural heritage, which helped lead to their fields, were submerged, their livelihoods momentarily wiped out the storm war. The damage of the agriculture sector is cornerstone of the Sicily economy is yet to be fully equipped, but early estimates suggest a significant impact. The storm has also rekindled discussions about the climate change and the increasingly visible impact. Scientists point to rising temperature in the Mediterranean in contrast of more frequent and intense weather patterns. This storm in Sicily is not an isolated incident but horrible to changing climate in respect not geographical barriers. Amidst the chaos have been hearing displays of resilience and solidarity. Communities have together to support avoided evacuation support to provide shelters to those displaced. Sicily, normally bridge collapsed loose to the dew blow from the narrow fields and when green groups are now fast swept through the mud and the water. Environmental warning in addition to human casualties, entire ecosystem have been temporarily destroyed. In the city of Noto, residents placed candles and the steps of historic cathedral in memory of the victims. Local presses helped open air masses in a flooded courtyard, calling the stretch and the unity. One of the Syrians, Lucia Manso, said, "We lost our beginnings, but not each other. The most important things." Meanwhile, the Italian army remained the standby with more than 400 soldiers destroyed across the isolated to clear debris, reinforce river banks to deliver aid to remove vigilantes. The EU has also experienced its support. A team from the US Civil Protection Mechanism has been sent to coordinate with the Italian authority, increasing the livelihood of international funding to support long-term recovery. Scientists emphasize this is only a high bridge of may become normal. Southern Europe is especially by the Mediterranean basin is becoming increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather events and the climate change accelerators.
Ma guardate come piove, come nevica a Pasqua.
Rome was hit by unexpected and several hailstones that covered historic capital with a layer of ice, creating several scenes to resemble weather rather than early autumn. The sudden storm swept through the city on Tuesday afternoon, disrupted traffic, flooding subway station and forcing prediction to seek shelter. Local authorities reported that hailstones, some the size of a golf ball, fell in nearly 20 minutes, covering squares, roads and even areas around the Coliseum. Emergency crew were disrupted to clear brook drains after torrential rain mixing with the ice caused the flash flooding in several low-lying areas. Public transport was severely affected, with the several metro lines temporarily suspended due to water ingress. Drivers described terrified moments where the visibility dropped to almost zero. It was like a sky was falling, and the hail bending to so loudly, and the roof in the car was where could hit each other, said the city resident Maria Russo. Businesses in the city center rushed to protect their shop windows, while cafes and restaurants along the Via del Corso lost their outdoor sitting areas, which were destroyed with the hail. Social media quickly filled with the images of Rome cobbled streets turned into rivers and ice, caused astonishment around the world. Meteorologists explained that the storm was caused of the sudden collision toward Mediterranean air with a cold front and swept through the central Italy, an increasingly common pattern associated with the climate instability. Experts warned that such intense hailstorms are becoming more frequent in southern Europe. Despite the chaos, no serious injuries were reported, although dozens of people were treated in hospital to minor cars and businesses. The mayor of Rome urged residents to remain cautious, emphasizing their city's vulnerability to extreme weather events. For many Romans, the storm was stark reminder for the power of nature and the need to better preparedness in the era-changing climate realities. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Maria Russo warning on the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate economy, warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature now about 27 Celsius are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local media including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and drainage flooded areas. Environmental groups such as Legiberg and Colson Italy in the speed-out infrastructure urged, especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo note that 16% of region drainage system are outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Sicily begins in a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility. They are not happening now with the devastating consequences. Storm winds with the cyclone rotation around the lowland between Basilicata and Campania when it gets up to 100 km/h in the lower Tyrrhenian Sea. Sicilian, Ionian and Adriatic straits as the result of strong winds surge along the open coast. The situation is less critical in the West Mons basins and the upper Tyrrhenian Sea. Bad weather is raging in Lazio, but not only there. Strong storms surge throughout Italy and snow at the well low altitude. The sea is stormy. All the coast of Ponza is the ferry connecting all the island, Formia and the marker of the waves. The ship brought to the Formia left on the hour late today. By evening it was still and the road can left Ponza at 3:13 p.m. It is expected to arrive Formia around 8:45 p.m. Rome, Italy was hit by unprecedented hailstorm, surprised and catching locals by tourists of God. The storm brought heavy rain, lightning and hailstorm the size of a golf ball, caused damage of cars, homes and businesses. Witnesses reported hearing long bands of the hailstorm stuck roofs and windows. Many took to social media share photos and video of severe storm, with some experienced disbelief as such weather could occur in the normally sunny sea.
Chiudi.
After the storm, Sicily emergency service remained overwhelmed. Over 315 emergency calls were recorded in 24 hours, and fire crews were sent to Serrate, Ragusa and Argento to clear fallen trees, restore power lines and evacuate flooded buildings. Farmers in rural area report catastrophic losses. Vineyard, olive grapes and retail and citrus orange where other vital civil economy were flooded. This storm destroyed 12-year work. St. Antonio Rizal, the farmer near Trapani, were in despair. The island's fragile infrastructure suffered serious damage in the southern parts of the island. Bridge in the rural roads collapsing, cutting off Smile Mountains town. In Enna, several landslides blocked all access roads, forcing helicopters to deliver supplies. Rescue teams, including the military, have been deployed to assist with the worst-hit areas. Civil defendants until have set up temporary shelters in schools and community centers of displaced families, many of whom have lost everything. Environmental experts warn that such intense storms are becoming more frequent due to climate change. In just a few hours, some areas received more rainfall than they normally do into entire month. Schools and government official and affected areas were closed to precautions and civil protection until the disrupted assist the damage and assist in cleanup. In Palermo, several unprecedented were flooded rapid cars and landslides were reported in town located on hills. Experts warned that such intense and frequent storm could become a normal in southern Italy. Climatologists are urging authorities and citizens to strengthen infrastructure and emergency preparedness on the Mediterranean region continue to face the worsened effect of global warming. As Sicily begins the cleanup, the storm severs not yet another stark reminder on a growing instability of the nature and urgent need to action to ensure environmental sustainability. Sicily has always faced extreme weather conditions, say climatologist Lucia De Santis, but the scale of intensity of this phenomenon is unprecedented. The sea surface temperature is at 3 Celsius above average and they contributed to strongest storm. The Italian Red Cross has launched a campaign to collect food, clothing and fruits. Donations are accepted online in location collection center. Despite the destruction have also been stories by heroism. In Palermo, a police officer warning through the flood waters a rescue an elderly couple trapped in the flooded car. We couldn't leave them there. The water was rising fast, he said. As cleanup beginning to Sicily starts to recover, officials warned the crisis far from over. Weather warning reminding police and another storm front could in southern Italy by the weekend. Italy Environmental Minister has promised a new plan to rebuild the south, including flood protection and reforestation measures to improvement the early warning system, but critical say this measure alone overdue. In Palermo, the sun broke through the grey sky, elimination of the messy aftermath in the night of Sicilian will not soon forget. We use a hardship, said Maria Conte, the grandmother, whose home was flooded, but we will drive flood, support each other and move on. Sicily is beginning to recover, but questions remain. Will the storm the wake-up call is just another serious ignore of warnings? Culture representative warned that the addition of psychological storm urged me to adapt to climate change were needed to prevent Sicily identified the tourist economy. This is a symbol act to unity in the consulate across the Sicily. Ron Bale solidarity as noon Tuesday, a moment of silence of victims assigns strange to serious. Sicily and no stranger to hardship. From the earthquake to volcanic eruption they have endured a lot, but this storm, many say, was different, not just a natural disaster but climate warning should the wind and the water. In dramatic turn of events, Sicily finds itself those in unprecedented storm as nature unleashed any fear upon the picturesque Italian island. We burst of the exclusive coverage and mythological spectacle deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering hilding the tempest to unparalleled proportions. Coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains leading the widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. Our on-the-ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels served submerged cars and tested to resilience to fluidness. The historic architecture withstood the test time to the basis of relentless onslaught of the wind of rain. Throughout the island communities are grappling with the power outage, and the storm force causes significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm. A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and a flash flood swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys, and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The rail runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed to army to aid the evacuation force. Civil Protection Authority have urged people in the affected areas to remind cautions to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency, and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas in exact button the impact of the recent storms.
Questa è via Sant'Alessio.
Guarda che roba questo.
Guardate questo signore.
Offering the lifeline in these terrifying times, agriculture sector and the backbone of Sicily economy is not immune to the storm impact. Orange in the field and inundated, posing to threat to groups of livelihood. Farmers already facing challenges in recent years are now too late to continue with the aftermath of this natural disaster. As the storm intensifies, rescue operations are underway to ensure the safety of residents trapped in the rising water. Emergency service blocked by the local volunteers to navigate in treacherous conditions to reach those in need. Evacuations are being carried out systemically, proportions to most vulnerable members of the community. Italy's government, in collaboration with the regional authority, is mobilizing rescue to address the crisis. Prime Minister Maria Russo has declared a state of emergency in Sicily, unlocking additional funds to rescue and in recovery efforts. The Italian Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations are also coordinated relief operations to provide essential supplies and support to affected communities. While the storm continues to batter Sicily. The resilience and solidarity in the people shine through. Neighbors are leading to helping hand and the communities are coming together to face and change in posing to natural disaster.
Dove vuoi andare? A sinistra o a destra? Va, dai, veloce!
The Italian capital Rome has been stained after a sudden and violent hailstorm swept through the city, pelting streets, monuments, and neighborhoods with the eyes of the sky of Ghost Ball. The storm struck with a little warning, turning summer strikes into a dramatic clash of thunder and lightning before unleashing torrents. The rain mixed with hail. Within minutes, a road turned wild, resembling winter snow rather than a September evening. I felt like the sky was exploding, said Marco Bianchi, a taxi driver whose car window was shattering. I lived here all life and never seen Rome like this. Dozens of people were threatened to injure, many from flying glass and fallen debris. Hospital reported cases to shock and debris and brushes, where several children were taken with a hit injury caused by the hailstorm. Emergency service received across the city responded to collapsing shops, canopies, damaged vehicles and flooded underpasses. Tourists were cut off guard in a historic era, with doors around the shelter inside the Colosseum and St. Peter Basilica and hailstorm battered Conti and pieces. Social media quickly filmed with the several images of the Trevi fountain surrounded by the sky, with the local described it into scene from another world. Transport was now into disarray. Rome's metro facing delay after water seeped into tunnels, with the traffic jams scattered into kilometers and the driver abandoned damaged car. Agriculture outside the city was also hit. The vineyard in Lazio suffered severe damage and the entire crew destroyed just a week before harvest, raising fears of million losers to the local farmers. Meteorologists explained the storm was fueling the unusually warm Mediterranean air classes the colder north front, creating the perfect conditions to the Cape formations. Experts warning that climate change is making such extreme events more frequent even in the region accustomed to them. In Venice, a city all too familiar, and the high water level flood definitions were put on the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the crisis from the rising test were activities sheltered the Venice from significant damage. However, other areas of the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in the Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to higher ground. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in several regions, mobilizing rescue workers to deploy to armed assist in evacuation force. Civil Protection Authority have urged people to affected areas to remain cautious to official warning as more rain forecast in the coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in the affected areas, expressing her solidarity with the victims and pledging government support to reconfiguration force. This is national emergency and we are working closely to local authority to ensure the safety for all residents, she said. Climate experts that such extreme weather events could become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, particularly vulnerable to affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, poor mountain infrastructure and urban expansion into flood-prone areas has exacerbated the impact of recent storms. A powerful storm hit Sicily. Italy caused severe weather conditions that resulted in widespread destruction across the island. The storm, characterized by heavy rain, gale force winds, led to widespread flooding, power outage and extensive damage to infrastructure. Local authorities report that the crises of Catania and Palermo have been hit by hardest heat. In Catania, streets turned into rivers. and water level rose in 3 drilling hertz. The historic city center, which is usually turned to tourists, is now eerily quiet. Emergency service tried to cope with the field. A video shared on social media showed cars submerged and residents walking throughout the waist-deep water. The meteorological service has recorded widespread up to 100 km/h, which for the agriculture to station. Trees have been uprooted, roofs have been ripped off buildings, and debris is scattered to roadway, making the travel dangerous. The regional government has issued a red alert, urging residents to stay at home and avoid unnecessary travel. In Palermo, the storm led to similar extent to chaos. In local airport was temporarily closed due to flooding of runway, leading to flight cancellation and delays.